you doing? Good? Awake? It was a long keynote. Who was at the keynote this morning? Could you raise your hand if you're at the keynote just to see?
Yeah. Want to make sure that we're not doing the same thing for everyone, so.
Great. So we've got a little bit more time today. We're going to show how to build some of the things. We're going to start from zero, and we'll build up, and we'll get some results starting building everything from scratch so you can see how things are combined.
Excuse me. So again, I'm a product manager at Unity. Product management in the R&D team works with customers like you guys to figure out what we're supposed to be building at Unity. The feedback we get from working with companies like Baobab, the guys you saw just before, they were a very early adopter of Timeline, and the feedback that we got from our early adopters have really helped drive the tool to what it is today. We want you to play with this, we want you to use it, and we want to get the feedback. It makes Unity better, and it makes your products better. We're very excited to see what you guys can do with these tools.
My name's Adam, and I have the title of Head of Cinematics, which is kind of a bit of a strange title, in the sense that, well, my goal is to give you guys world-class storytelling tools, to make your in-game cameras as good as you can, and to make it so artists can create without having to talk to a programmer all the time. And I was in the game industry for 15 years, and I was doing cameras, and every time, most of the time, that I want to make a change, you have to go talk to a programmer. And then you have an idea, and you ask him to change a number somewhere, and then you try it, and it's not good, and you go back, and by the end of the day, he's kind of tired of seeing you. And then you have to do that for the next year. So we built Cinemachine to allow artists to create camera content by themselves, to make mistakes, to experiment, to try out crazy ideas, and every once in a while that crazy idea turns out to be a great idea. And for you to do it all by yourself without having to talk to a programmer. So that's where these tools came from.
So as we saw in the keynote, Timeline is Unity's new track-based sequencing tool. It's that mission of putting the control back in the artist's hands is sort of the foundation of Timeline, and a lot of the new artist tools that we will be rolling out over the next year and so. So as you can see, it's multi-track sequencing. The different colors are different types of track. So we have animation, audio, camera, Cinemachine. So they're actually color-coded to indicate what they do. We have activation tracks where you can just turn on and off game objects. It's the same as calling set active. Through a couple of these key features, you can create amazing cinematics. And as we'll show you today as well, is it's much more than just a cutscene tool. You can use this to integrate it directly into your gameplay. And think of it as states in your animation tree. So you have a special move or a combo or an attack, and you can actually use Timeline to help add to your existing animations. And we'll show you some of that as well. The big power is that it's fully integrated into Unity, so we have direct access to your animation, the audio, the new video player, some of the new extension formats that we're coming out with, we're supporting, like Alembic. That direct integration is really the true strength. Now this was the traditional content workflow. The artists create content in Maya or Max, and they throw it over the fence to the engineers, just like what Adam mentioned before. It works, but we feel that the artist should be more involved, more deeply involved. So we've added another step. So Timeline and Cinemachine allow the artists to actually get involved and sculpt their interactive experiences. We think the artists should be the ones creating the cutscenes and the camera animations. The engineers, probably not. The engineers can trigger the sequences. We can say timeline.play or enable different Cinemachine cameras. But the artists are the ones creating the vision that Unity is now able to let you execute. As we said, we still like engineers. Engineers are good. You can control Timeline completely from an API. So you can create new timeline sequences. It's just a component like any other component in Unity. And you have direct access to control it, scrub to a certain time, play, stop, start different timelines. I'll show you an example of that. And it's the same Unity under the hood. You can control it and create and manipulate your timeline.
We're going to show Cinemachine in action.
We'll talk about Cinemachine a lot.
So we'll get right past this guy.
Okay, so we've got a whole bunch of demos. We may or may not get to this.
A lot of stuff to get through, so let's start.
All right. Okay, so here we have some content from a project called A Mighty Kingdom. This was shown at the Vision Summit a couple weeks ago, but this is actually a content pack that we created to help demonstrate some of these features. It also is very good for demonstrating timeline. So here I'm just going to add a prefab to the world. And let me move it around, get it in the right spot. Now all this is a normal 3D model that I've loaded in. The artists have created a couple of extra particle effects. So this one's a particle system. This one also has a particle system on it. And then this is our minecart. And all we're going to do is we're going to animate it coming out, and it's going to dump some rocks. To begin, on the prefab itself, I'm going to create a new timeline. So I just create, you can call it whatever you want. Now this adds the playable director component that I mentioned before. The playable is the asset that it actually uses, so that stores the timeline info. And then it has a couple of options, including being able to loop it, so you can just create looping sequences, like ambient in the world. You can hold at the end, so it'll play to the end and then the objects will stay there. Or you can just say none and it'll just play and be done. You can also define whether it plays on awake, just like your normal awake function. So when you hit play mode or load the scene, these timeline sequences will automatically start. If you have this unchecked, you can start it from script. So now that we have our timeline and our object, I'm going to add an animation track. I just simply drag the object from the scene onto timeline. And it gives us some options here. So we have a Cinemachine track, which Adam will show you later. Activation track allows you to turn on and off game objects. Or animation track, which I'm just going to add that one. So now our cart, actually I'm going to lock this so it doesn't lose it. So we can go to our cart and actually animate it around. So I'll move it inside the tunnel and hit record. So now we have a start position. And you can see when I move it and add a key, the color of the position has changed. I also want to set a key on the rotation, so I can right click on the rotation value and set add key as well. If you want to see those, you can expand below and see that we have position and rotation values set. Now that I've done that, I'm going to move out, say a couple seconds. You can also specify whether you want to work in frames or time, and you can also specify whether you want a keyframe in a variety of different frame rates. So I'm just going to leave it on seconds and go to 3, and then we'll move our cart out. So just by doing that, while we're in record mode, it's set 2 keyframes. So I can have them come out here, and then I'm going to get them to rotate a bit, and then rotate back, and then go back inside.
You're not only a programmer, Mike, but you're
I'm
very
really
solid,
good at this.
gifted animator.
I'm really good at this. All right, so now that we've done that, I can just hit the space bar, and we can see our animation. I think Pixar is in trouble. So now that I've done that, I actually want this to loop. So I'm going to come back here and set this to loop. I also want this one to play on awake. So the next thing we're going to add is an activation track. So here I have my particle effects. I'm going to, not rename it, I'm going to drag it out and do an activation track. So you can see this one looks a little different. What it's saying is for the duration of this clip, it's going to affect the state of this particular game object. So here I can, this one is going to be somewhere around when it dumps the rocks. And I'm going to do the same thing to the dirt pile. And now I can just hit play and see what this looks like. Oh, I forgot to add a camera. Wait a minute.
Hey, that's my job.
Sorry. All right, well, actually, no, I'm going to delete it because that is your job.
No, that's good.
I'll just go back to scene view. Okay, so we can see our, oh, I animated the wrong object, I think. Dirt pile, dirt anim. Oh, it's not dirt pile, it's this other one, dirt dump. Activation track. Okay. So let's see what happens here. All right, there's throwing out some effect. So we now have a super good animation throwing some rocks. That's all there is to timeline. You're adding keyframes, activating, deactivating game objects, and you can bring objects to life. In the background, you can see a good version that the animators actually made, I think.
So, a proper one down here?
Yeah, there is a better one over here.
Okay.
So this one actually, the animators created. So.
They probably took more than 3 minutes to make it.
Yeah, maybe.
Should we put a camera on it?
I think we should put a camera on it.
Okay. So this is how you set up a Cinemachine camera. So we need to add a camera to the scene. And it's right here. And then in the Cinemachine tab, you just say I want to create a virtual camera. And it makes one. You can see on the main camera, it adds a little icon, and it's added a thing called the Cinemachine brain. Now, virtual cameras, Cinemachine cameras, are not actually cameras. They're light. They're just basically transforms. And the reason why we did it this way is so you can blend multiple cameras together, and then Cinemachine will take the product of that and then give it to the main Unity camera. And we did that so it's really fast, and so it's light, and so we can do picture-in-picture, and we can do other cool things. So I'm going to take the virtual camera, and I'm going to just sort of get it in the ballpark. Let's make a game window over here so we can actually see what's happening. Okay, now we're going to take the camera track, and we just drop on it a timeline, create a Cinemachine track, and then we're going to create a shot, a clip. This is like an activation track. It's really just an activation track for the camera. I'm going to just drag that camera in here. So, and then we're going to do another camera. This is another way we can do it. Just create another clip here. You can just say create a shot. So now we got 2 shots. I'm going to just name this so it's easy to know. I'm just going to call this Telly for telephoto, and we're going to call this one Close-Up for close-up. Okay, so that is the Telly, that is the close-up. The close-up camera we're going to put right here, and I'm going to put a wide lens on it. Just get it right here. This is going to be like an action camera. Like this is going to be a scary shot. We're going to put a little Dutch tilt on it because that makes everything scarier. Adjust the FOV. And on the tele camera, why don't we target this thing? So here's this cart. So I'm just going to target the cart. Watch this. This is how easy it is. you just say look at. And we're going to use the composer, which is the cool screen space guy. And we're going to use a telephoto lens. And nothing says draw like some handheld camera shakes. So let's throw some of those on there too. I'm just going to lower the camera a little bit. I didn't show this at the keynote, but Cinemachine works both ways. You know, we can change the composition like this and say, you know, we want it to be wherever we want it on screen. Oops, these guys are a little fiddly. We're going to work on that. You can also do it backwards. Look at this. I'm going to take the camera, move the camera around, and it still figures out the shot. So it's almost like inverse kinematics for cameras. So let's just go here. Now watch this. We've got this noise module here. And this is a multi-channel Perlin noise, and you can use it for all sorts of vibrations and shakes. And because it's procedural, it's super light. So we've created some assets here. We got a handheld. And I'm going to go handheld extreme because, I mean, you might as well go extreme. So we've got a feature. Want to see the mouse? If I just click and hold on timeline, it'll preview the shake. You can tune it. It's really pretty excessive. I mean, that's a bit ridiculous. So, now, let's play our little cutscene. I mean, this is Academy Award-winning stuff right here. There's our shot. He dumps the stuff. It goes back. I'm not animating the camera. You're like, okay, wait, that was, you missed bad. So let's fix that. Let's at least get the dumping bit to be in time. So look at this. Now, for those of you who use Unity a lot, you know that sometimes when you tune things and the game's running, it doesn't save. We're actually working on that, and that's going to get fixed. But we fixed it inside Cinemachine. So look at this. I'm changing the edit. So we come dump. Oh, a little bit too soon. Let's edit that a little bit closer. And I mean, we can polish this further. You get the idea. But watch this. I'm in play mode. And we have this new, amazing shot. But watch. I turn off play mode, get back to edit mode. It's all still there. So, as an artist, oh yes, that's good.
It is that good.
We have some Unity developers in the audience. You know, as an artist, when you create things, you need to see it in context, right? And sometimes you have to get halfway through the level, or, you know, get this situation set up where you've got all these things together, and then you just want to tune something, and then you want that to be saved. So, it works in Timeline, it works in Cinemachine. That's because these are new features, and then it's coming to all of Unity very soon, so later in the year. And that's something that Mike and I are really passionate about because we know it's a very important thing.
So the next thing I'm going to do is use the same scene, and I'm going to actually show you something we can do as far as controlling timeline from script. So I've added a new prefab in here, which is one of our towers. This is a tower defense game we're making. In this, like I mentioned, you can actually think of timeline as like your existing animations. So this one object has 4 timelines that I've added. We have different states: construction, when the object is placed; we have damaged, when the object takes damage; and a destroyed timeline. The active one doesn't do much yet. What I've done is I've created a very simple script. I guess it's called State Switcher. And all I'm doing is, let me try to make this a little bigger. I have 4 different timelines in my script, and all I'm doing is calling the timeline.play or timeline.stop based on the different states. This script took me about 5 minutes, so I apologize. It's not the best code, but gets the idea across. So I'm going to put this on our object. Yes, I don't care about the prefab. Okay. So we have 4 timelines, 1 object. So I'm going to put the construction in. I missed. Construction. Active. damaged, and death. And then what I'm going to be able to do is that while the game is playing, I have an enum, and I'm just going to change which enum is active. So I can just hit play, and right now it's the active timeline, which is this one here. It's not actually doing much. But if I switch over to the construction one, let's lock this timeline. And I'll switch the state to construction, and you can see it plays that whole timeline sequence. We've got 8 different tracks, a whole bunch of different keyframes. Again, I didn't animate it, a real artist animated it. But it actually brings that objects to life. Instead of, imagine having to do this in Maya or something, and then you change it, you want to adjust it, you want to manipulate it. This was 100% done in Unity. We're activating game objects, we're turning on particle effects, we have a whole bunch of stuff happening. And the artists were able to create this with, I didn't show them how to do this, they just did it. And we can do the same thing, now that we've placed our object, we've damaged it. What we're doing here, this one is just simply enabling a game object that has a particle effect on it. And then if we switch to the destroyed, it now blows up. See, you can see how timeline can really change how you work with Unity. It's really fun to work with. I actually very much enjoy it. So, and it gives you a whole new way of working. So,
it's so cool to quickly switch between different timeline tracks like that.
Yeah, exactly. Like it's just like your animator. You can have all your nodes in your animator graph. You can think of this as supplementing it, which is actually a good point because the Unity animator, our animation system, is running the same underlying playable system. So the new playable API, which comes out of experimental in 2017.1, is what powers timeline. It powers the animator. The audio system is using it. We have a new video playable that allows you to scrub video on timeline. A lot of these new systems are being sort of migrated over to use the same playable system, and that's where you get the magic blending, where all the magic sort of combinations of tracks. It's super exciting. So let's jump over to some of the stuff we showed in the keynote. Close this one. No,
my camera work, you did with
my animation. No, wait, back. What are we doing now? So let's jump into the Ghost of a Tale project. Man, you have too many versions of Unity on here.
That is true. We should take a moment to reflect on what we've just seen.
So Ghost of a Tale, again, is a game created by a very small team. I think most of it is actually done by one guy. His name's Lionel. I can never remember his last name. Galat. So he created Ghost of a Tale. So he created all the content by himself, taught himself how to program, and he was gracious enough to lend us the content from his game. And then we took it and we basically rethought or looked at it and tried to figure out how we would build it in Timeline and Cinemachine. This is the result.
So you saw in the keynote, we go from gameplay cameras, and I wanted to just show you a little bit more about how easy it is and the power of working with all these things together. We demonstrated a version of this to a group in Los Angeles, a film production company, and we showed them how easy it is to work on cameras, lighting, animation, all at the same time, because, you know, in a film, they do it in very distinct stages, and you get committed to your decisions. So in this example, we've got the little mouse, you've seen them, and it's like, well, let's just move the camera back a little bit. Let's move it up. I'm actually just gonna make it so it tracks the target a little bit better. And then let's just say you want the light the shadow to hit his eye just as he peeks up. So the timeline, you can work on all these things together to do that. So I'm just going to move this camera. I'm going to just do this, and then we can find the light in the scene. I know it's back here. And you can tune all these things together. Here's the curve for the lid opening. I'll put a key right here. And then you're like, okay, so at this point, when he looks up, I'd like his head to just be out of the shadow. And you can work on, and then from here, I'd actually like it to be down a little bit more. And you understand where I'm going with this. Working with everything in context, everything together, where you're tuning, oh, see now it goes to the lid, so that's not very good. And the ability to just tune cameras, animation, lighting, and to see them all together, to be able to choreograph all of these elements in one go. And especially when the game's running, which is just a huge benefit. You know, we're targeting his eye right now. And just move that composition a little bit more. You can see in Cinemachine, see this open area here. This is where the camera will disregard motion. In most of the demos I've showed you, I've had that closed, which means the camera is going to track it 100%. See how the camera's tracking it quite aggressively? You can also open it up, and it creates a little bit of a dead zone. And then you can see the camera will only move when the target hits that. And that's good if your character has like a breathing cycle and you don't want the camera to be following it too closely. One other bit with this that I'd like to share is we call it damping. I'm going to set it to 0 right now. And you can see that this is 100% constrained. I like this bigger so it's a little bit more obvious. And see how we're like just perfectly following its eye. It doesn't actually feel very good because we've grown up watching so many movies and so much content where the cameraman lags a little bit. So watch this, I can just put in a little bit of dampening time. Let's go even a little bit more. Let's go too far just so you can see it. And now the camera and the subject are decoupled a little bit.
Show it a blend out of gameplay.
Blend out of gameplay.
Yeah, because that's pretty cool.
This little guy right here?
Yeah, this last clip. How do we get back to gameplay?
Well, this is a gameplay camera right here.
Yeah.
So we can do like an old school cutscene where we cut back to gameplay. But because of timeline and because Cinemachine's totally unified, it's a one camera system for gameplay and for cutscenes. Look at this, you just go, you blend from gameplay into this shot, and you blend back out.
So the important thing is the free look camera from gameplay is actually the same kind of virtual camera that we're using on timeline. That's why we can blend in and out. It's the same camera environment.
There's dozens of Cinemachine settings. We can't get into them all right now, but there's a whole bunch of controls for specifically just for gameplay cameras. So, yeah.
The other thing, Adam was playing around with the animator. We've also done quite a bit of work on the animation window in the last couple releases. And you can just right-click on any keyframe track and edit in the existing animation window. So this is where we're going to unify some of this, but we get the box select if you want to scale animations or do anything like that. You can look at the curves here with the curve editor. And these are actually synchronized, so you can actually scrub, I'll put it down here. So you can actually scrub and work in the animation window, and it still scrubs your timeline window. So they're actually unified there. The final bit on animation is, so each of these, the mouse animations, these are just normal clips that we brought in. I'll find, I don't have a project when you open. These are just animation clips from Maya or Max, the same that you would do normally. And you can right click on one and say find source asset, and it'll show you. So I have a couple of FBX files with animations, and you can just drag them in as well. So grab the animation and just drop it onto the timeline sequence and then blend them as well. So it's a very quick way of working.
Another thing which is really powerful to use is, you can see this is the keyframe, the animation window. I could just right click this and turn it into a clip. Now this clip represents that, but what's really cool about that is if I drag it longer, obviously there's hold time. If I keep dragging it, it can repeat. And if I shift drag it, it time scales the whole clip. So you can come up with an idea that's really nice, but it needs to go a little faster or slower, that kind of thing. And then on top of that, you can right click this clip and copy it, and zoom out, put some more down, and move them around. So it's great for when you have little ideas and you like to propagate them. So you can see the little, just open up again. If we want it to open up slowly, hold down shift, and now it's really slowly opening.
All right. So let's, do you want to show some of the more Cinemachine features that we looked at?
Keep moving on. Let's go.
So we talked a little bit about the Playable API. We've actually got a very interesting demo that was created by a studio working with NASA. And they actually created a really interesting project that demonstrates the Playable API. Using the Playable API, you can create custom behaviors and custom clips that can drive anything in Unity. In this case, they happen to use it to drive time of day.
It's not very often that you're working with a group where NASA calls you up and says that they'd like you to help them on something. So we did this in conjunction with a studio called Blackbird Interactive. I used to work there, they're awesome guys. And this is the one. Eagle. Oh no, I like, this particular one requires we've got some things I need to open in this specific Unity. So what NASA wanted was to simulate what it's like to go to Mars. And we had the challenge of emulating a day and night cycle on Mars. What would it be like to wake up and then see the sun move overhead? And what does that look like on Mars? So we used Timeline for that. I hope I didn't load in the wrong one. Guess we'll find it.
So for this project, NASA was trying to give you a sense of what it would be like to live on Mars. So part of the experience is obviously they created the future station here, and
Then you'll load it.
object not seen.
Oh yeah. Where'd it go? Where did I put it? One sec. Where did this go? Okay, I'm gonna come back to this. Let's move. I think we moved something on this scene.
We haven't looked at this scene.
We haven't done this scene in a while. My apologies on that. We're gonna just do this again. What you would have seen just now is we use timeline clips to control time of day, different lighting, different fog values, all kinds of different settings, and then by overlapping the clips, we blended all the different times of day together. So, but a picture is worth 1,000 words on this, so I'll give it one more try. Okay. Yeah, we have to move on. Yeah, we have to move on. This is, we're gonna move on from this. I'm sorry. So let's load.
Let's go here, Adam.
Go down.
Yeah, we're down to 50.
Okay. Does that saying? Always make sure your demo is on your machine working before you get up in front of tons of people.
We were so close.
I was so close. We've had so many different demos on this machine.
All right, so now we're going to let Adam do a deep dive on some of the Cinemachine stuff that we showed earlier. There's some amazing stuff here. It's a lot of concepts, but hopefully you can get the sense of how this can work with your project.
We've been working on this tech for quite a while. I had a small company that was making camera technology, and Unity acquired it, and that's me, and that's how come now Unity has Cinemachine. So this has been a topic that's been really close to my heart for a super long time.
I'll also point out that even though Adam's creating some of this stuff for Cinemachine now, the original Adam demo actually used a very, very early version of Timeline. So we had actually using the same basic tech that you now have access to. They didn't have Cinemachine though, so they had to do their cameras the hard way.
Okay, so what I'm going to show is, this is similar to what we had in the keynote. I'm going to show you a little bit more about how it works. So, you've got complete FOV control, and you've got different types of, we've decoupled orientation and translation from the, on the camera. So this is the composer, and it's obviously the most powerful way of moving the camera. We also, if you look under here, this is the body, and the hard constraint just means the camera is just stuck in the world somewhere. So I can just pick the camera, oops, always remember to lock your timelines. I can just pick the camera, it's right here, and you can just move it wherever you want. And you can animate it really closely. Like, I'm gonna just watch, I just want you to see, oops, I just want you to see how fast this is. So I'm gonna delete this animation track. I'm gonna take this camera, and you just drag it into timeline. Close a few of these guys, just give myself a little bit more room here. You say, I wanna animate this thing. And you say, okay, well, let's just do this huge pushing crane shot from really far away. Cool, so I like that there. And then we're gonna move these shots back a little bit, make this guy longer. We get to here, and then by this point, we want to be a lot closer. And maybe right up front, and we're going to go straight into his face. And the interesting thing is it's his face. If he was a differently heighted character, the camera would still track to that. And in seconds, you've made this really long track shot. And then while you're messing with that, you can just hit record. And then that just start working on the composition of that shot. And we just kind of like it there, and by the end, we want him to be right in the middle of the screen. And it just all works. We've now got this big, long, sexy shot that pushes in. We go right on his face. Now, and this is where traditional keyframe cameras would get broken. I'm going to open up the character here. And I know that this is Adam 1. And I can select this and watch. I'm going to move him. I'm going to move him somewhere else. Let's find where he is in the world. He's right here. And let's say, okay, I'm going to make him further back. We're going to move him further back. Well, if you're keyframing your cameras, normally that would be broken, but now we're still targeting him, we're still pushing in. And I've worked on games where you're doing cutscenes, and then that weekend, designer comes in and changes the speed of all your vehicles. And then on Monday, you open up your cutscene and there's nothing in the frame. The vehicles are somewhere else because everything's changed. You have to start again. Or, you know, the animators polish some animation and it breaks everything. So part of this was built to try to insulate cameras from other changes in the game. So you can block in shots and do edits and make cool sequences and then not have to worry about them getting broken when people do different things. Okay, next up I'm going to show you how you can mix post effects. So here's a post effects profile on this guy. I got green only for some reason. Okay, so I'm gonna just do something a little bit crazy on this one. We're gonna just like, well, let's just go kind of nuts. Let's bloom it out like crazy. And the photographer's fired for having, so the cinematographer's fired for having such a dirty lens. And watch this. This is a clip. This has a camera, and this has a post profile. Autofocus too. This camera has got different post effects. So let's go to this one and make this guy something else. I'm just gonna go pretty ridiculous. And now you can see we're switching between those two post effects. So each shot can own the settings, and each shot can own the depth of field. And if you don't like what you've done, you just right click on these little wheels, and they go back to normal. And for those of you who haven't seen waveforms before, these are incredibly powerful. And I can tell that there's a lot of blue in the sky just because the blue is a little bit higher here. There's more blue value. This is the left of the screen, this is the middle of the screen, and that's the right of the screen. So without even looking at the screen, and you're gonna have to trust me on that, I can just animate this. I can make the sky whiter. I know it's whiter, it's got less color, because the waveforms here are more in a line. So see how you don't see the reds and the blues together, they're a little bit more in line? So you can actually, without even looking at the screen, I can color grade that out. Or you can say, hey, just in my shadows, I'd like them to be a little bit cooler. And then in my highlights, I'd like them to be a little bit warmer. And you can start to come up with really, really sophisticated color grades. I'm just so happy this is in Unity. We used to have to go to like a DaVinci Resolve to color grade things and then build a lookup table and then bring that back into Unity, and it's just, bam, it's right here. So we're super excited about that. All right, we got 7 minutes. Do you want to go to animate? Can we blend between them? Blend between post effects? Yeah. That is coming soon. Mike, you're asking tough questions. Sorry. Are you ready to see what happens? Okay, let's there we go. So what do we got here? We're gonna blend a super, we haven't done this before, we're gonna blend between a super bloomy overhead shot to a reverse shot that's like that. Oh, right here. We're gonna see what happens. I mean, we don't know if this is gonna work. Not all things are beautiful in the world, are they? So we're actually gonna now blend from this camera. Yeah, it just pops. Right. Yeah, right now they just. So in Unity 2017-2, which comes out in September, that's when the next revision of the post effects stack has proper blending and mixing. Obviously, if it's a Boolean, like what anti-aliasing setting, they're not going to blend, but all the values will blend between each other.
Cool. Well, we're down to about the last 5 minutes of our talk, so we'd like to actually open it up for some questions. This is all pretty new and pretty all over the place, so if anyone has any questions, feel free. Or we can just keep showing you stuff.
I'm still so happy this is in there. I went pretty quickly during the keynote, so just so you can see it, this is a color, this is the color spectrum. And then you can amplify or diminish color. So because this is in the red channel, like in the red section, if I crank up, the red goes crazy, and if I crank down, the red goes less. So on each shot, you can combine all of these. So this is a luminosity versus saturation. And this is one I didn't talk about, and I'd like to just quickly touch on it. A lot of game engines, when things get to be near the clip region, they get too saturated. These are dark values, these are midtone values. and these are highlight values. And I find you can make your CG scene look a lot more realistic if you take the color out of the highlights. So when things get near clip, they go less saturated, they go whiter. You only see that a little bit here. But if you go too far the other way, it can look really, kind of look like it's a bit gamey. It just doesn't have quite the right saturation to it. Anyway, we can talk about this stuff for hours. This is one of my favorite bits. So please, if you got questions, can we answer any questions? Do we have a microphone for the floor? All right, questions, anyone? There's one. There was one.
Hi. What about character animation? Is that a thing you can do already, or are you looking for a feature?
So you're talking about animating characters
Yeah.
in Timeline?
Yeah.
You can do it now. All of the keyframing stuff is there, same as you can do it with the regular animation system. Most characters obviously have fairly complicated hierarchy, so it might be a little time consuming. What we are looking to add in a future release is more of an IK-based setup, so you can just grab a hand and move it. In 2017.1 as well, we have what's called the Game Object Recorder. It's a new component that's being added that allows you to record anything that's happening, all the transforms from a game object. You just specify its root, and it will actually turn in whatever happens, all the transforms underneath, into an animation clip. This allows you to set up a scene, run around, play the game, turn that into an animation, all the animator clip, all the blending, and then you can use that in Timeline. Another thing we're looking at to help with that is the animation system. We're adding runtime animation masking, which allows you, just like in the animator, you could say, here's my animation clip, like the walk cycle from Adam, but we want to mask so you can custom animate the arm, or get them to look at something. So you can just animate specific sub-transforms. So there's a couple of options that we're looking at.
A way of thinking about it is it's more about like manipulating and massaging animations that are there. Like Mike said, you can completely animate it, but if you think of like Maya or Max, like those programs are 20 years old. They've got so many features in it, and it's not like we're trying to replace Maya. We're trying to allow artists to take animation that comes in and shape it, especially for gameplay, and being able to have Unity adjust and manipulate animations to best suit what's currently happening for like
And also
controllers.
supplement the animation. So you bring an attack animation in, and you want to trigger a particle effect or a sound. The example I always use is you want to open a door. So you open a door, but then you want to have a sound effect, or you want to have a particle effect, or you want to trigger something else in the world. Timeline allows you to take these existing animations and then add or enhance them for gameplay or cinematics. So.
Cool.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Anybody else?
We had a question up front here, I think.
Hi, should you guys have the ability to animate the pivot? For example, the cut, the wheel. I want to position the pivot right exactly at the center of the wheel to have a perfect animation of
Right.
jumping.
You can't affect the pivot of existing objects, but you could use like just a dummy object to reset the pivot and then animate the dummy object, so like make a parent. There are a number of add-ons in the asset store that let you reset pivots for objects, I know I've seen. That would be more on the model import pipeline. It's something we can look at, and it's actually something we've discussed, but I don't know where that's at yet. So yeah, you could fake it with a dummy game object and then do that. So.
but I think it will be much
I
more
agree.
simple.
I need that. Yeah.
Thank you.
Well, thank you. I think that's all the time we have. So thank you very much for
Thank
coming.
you for coming.
Unity 2017.1 is in beta now. I think beta 5 just came out. You can get access to this exact build. The post-processing stack is available on the asset store, and Cinemachine 2.0 is available in early version, and the final will come out with 2017.1 as well. They're all for free on the asset store.
Can we go back to the
Please.
screen just for a second? Yeah, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.